Hey, welcome back to the podcast. I am Justin Stacy,
I'm Nate Thomas.
I'm Josh Matney.
and today we are diving into Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, Gene Wilder edition, the best edition.
Not even a discussion. I know we will discuss it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Josh, my understanding is this was not your first watch, but maybe your second watch. Like this is the first time you've watched it in a very, very long time.
Yeah, like this would probably be my first time watching it fully through, but like I have seen it in the past. I don't know where or when, but I do remember seeing it somewhere. It may have been in middle school, but like this is like almost like a first time watching it fully through. And I liked it a lot better than that other thing that came out.
The Johnny Depp version.
Yeah.
Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Yeah. But yeah, this was good. And surprisingly, it kind of reminded me of, I don't know, like it just didn't seem like a G-rated film. It kind of reminded me of like something like a like there was that tunnel scene just blew my mind away.
Oh
like,
yeah, we'll have to.
I forgot how creepy that really was but then again, this came out like what, 40 some years ago?
1971.
51 years ago.
1971.
That's crazy. And the movie still looks good.
Absolutely. That's the one thing that I love about this movie is it doesn't feel or look like a 1971 movie.
No. I would put this in one of those American films, kind of like Wizard of Oz, like such an iconic, essential.
What a good connection.
Very good connection. Awesome. All right. Well, let's jump right into it. Sit back, relax, put your feet up as we open a bottle of pop culture.
Yes.
Gonna talk about some really cool stuff. Well, Josh, Nate, and I, we're gonna blow this thing up. We're gonna talk about the movies you love. And if you don't, well, that's just tough. But we're gonna talk about shows that are awesome. You'll say, whoa, when we talking about Blossom. This will be your one and only stop for everything nerdy in a bottle of pop culture.
All right. So getting into this, like I love this movie. I absolutely adore this movie. I watch it at least once a year, sometimes more.
Sure.
Like, I'll see it being advertised on, Roku or something. And I'm like, you know what? I've got nothing else to do. I'm going to put it on.
Yeah.
And it's so good. It's pleasing to watch, pleasing to look at because of all the candy and stuff.
It's a classic. It is a true classic.
Yes.
And like the Gene Wilder, he has such a charisma about when he acts. There's just something that like he can do sarcasm, he can do the sincere roles really good, and I think this was a good movie where he kind of showed both of those.
I agree. I kept thinking, well, watching the movie, I kept watching Gene Wilder and thinking, all right, 50 years ago, who could have played this role? And I went online and did some research, and there were several names mentioned. But of the names mentioned, I couldn't find anyone that I felt like today we'd say this was their role. This was them. Like when I think of Gene Wilder, I think of him in the Willy Wonka costume.
Yeah.
I know in the early 70s and the late 60s, you had people like Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr., the Rat Pack, who were such big movie stars, all could sing, all could move, clearly would have been a hit. I don't know that it would have been this. I'm sure there are others that I've not even written down names for. But Gene Wilder, that to me, he is Willy Wonka.
Yeah.
Yep.
The only actor that I can see coming close, and this is still kind of not even close to me, I can probably see Jim Carrey doing it, but I don't know if it would be very iconic, but I can see him doing it because he kind of has that history doing the very serious roles along with the comedy roles and being very goofy and sarcastic.
You're thinking today.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking like today.
So there is going to be a prequel that is coming out in 2023 of this movie called Wonka, I believe, and it's about a young Willy Wonka. And I forget who they casted as the
Timothy
actor, but
Chalamet.
there you go. But he looks somewhat like a young Gene Wilder, so
And
I'm looking forward to that.
Chalamet is one of those actors, like he's in the dramatic stuff. He's really funny. I watched him on Saturday Night Live, and he dove in. I think this has potential to be good. We'll know when we see a trailer.
Yeah,
it has potential to be really strong. We don't want to jump too far ahead. I don't want to.
Who owns it? Is it by Warner Brothers or because
it's Warner Brothers because it was on HBO Max.
That's where I watched it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wasn't this movie owned by Quaker Oats or something like that?
No, the Wonka. So Wonka, the Wonka candy bar, the chocolate was owned by Quaker Oats, and then they sold out to Nestle in the 80s, I believe. So Nestle now owns Wonka. And that was the whole idea. Well, I mean, so this started out as a book called Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And in the book, it's referenced Willy Wonka and that chocolate, right? So the book is already referencing something that exists. And so basically they had to get a license, whatever movie production that was making this movie had to get the license to actually use the images and stuff for Wonka, since Quaker Oats would have owned it. But that's the reason why they changed the name. It was supposed to be Charlie and the Chocolate Factory when they were originally writing the movie. They changed the name to Willy Wonka because that name is more familiar to everybody because of the chocolate. So it was really just a PR move, a marketing move, which is a great idea, honestly. Because I'm way more familiar with Willy Wonka the Chocolate Factory than I am Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, even though Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is the OG. It is the book.
And the movie Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is really a little closer to the book.
Yes. So one of the things, go ahead, Nate.
Sorry. Now that doesn't matter because it was considered such a disaster.
So was Willy Wonka in the Tim Burton version more accurate to the book?
Probably.
Oh my God.
I've never read the book, but from my understanding,
when I was young.
from my understanding, it's much darker.
Yeah.
And and I don't know, maybe much more serious or much more horror-esque type. Basically, the scene, the tunnel scene that you were talking about earlier, Josh, that is one of your favorite parts of this.
Yeah.
That I think come directly out of the book. Like that was one of the things that was inspired by the book, and that was the horror element, right? For this movie. Now,
and not the quotes and poetry, but yes.
Right. So my understanding is the author, I forget his name, but the author of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory did not like this adaptation, the Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. When he's seen how comedic they made it and how light they made it, he didn't like it. He said, "This is not the book." And he didn't like Gene Wilder either.
No.
Oh wow.
So. So he was completely against this adaptation, and then good thing they didn't really take him into advisement because they blew it out of the water.
that kind of reminds me of how like Stephen King hates Stanley Kubrick's version of The Shining, like absolutely hates it. But it's so iconic. And it's funny when authors they hate, but it's one thing if the movie fails and it doesn't.
Right.
But like this is very iconic for American film.
Yeah.
One of the actresses I was reading yesterday kept talking about the author Roald Dahl, which is so hard to say.
Yeah.
Being on set and being very friendly. And so somewhere between filming and the premiere, he decided he hated it, apparently. Of course, that may be a false recollection, but.
Right. And it could be that when you're on set, you're not really seeing everything together. Right. Once you see the finished product and you see how light it is, maybe how kid friendly it is. That's why they did. Ultimately, that's why they did it. They needed to make this a PG movie.
Yeah.
So they can't have all of the grim darkness of what the first imagining of it was. Right. So I think they did a good job of blending. There's really psychotic elements to Willy Wonka character.
Oh
And I
yeah.
love that. And that apparently that is one of the things that Gene Wilder said, if you want me in for this role, we have to explore that. We have to make sure that I can do certain things that seem bipolar. And I felt it throughout the entire movie with Willy
Mhm.
Wonka. That he was bipolar.
Like every time, of course, like he had this plan to give somebody the factory, and like it's almost like he had this plan, like it was, like he saw the kids from the beginning, and it's like, okay, F this kid, F this kid, and then it's like, okay. So like all the ones that were being met by his, what's that guy who goes around talking to the kids, try to sell them?
Slugworth.
Yeah.
Did
And
you guys
like,
watch this movie? You don't remember any names.
I really don't remember the names, but like,
I'm
yeah,
the only one that watched this film.
he's a very like planned out character. He goes in, he knows what he wants, he knows what he's going to do, and he plays this like this like you said, the bipolar stuff. Like when a kid gets in trouble, he's like, oh no, don't do that. Oh, well, next thing, let's go.
Right.
Help, police, murder.
Well,
Oh no.
what I did after I watched the movie, I went to Reddit, because Reddit is where all the crazy people post all their crazy theories, but it sure is fun to read. And I kept looking up Willy Wonka, and I finally found one. This one guy, it didn't take me long. He's like, don't you think Wonka knew where all the tickets were? Because every time somebody opened a ticket, Slugworth was there. And you find out then Slugworth worked for Wonka. And when I went back and thought about it, I said, that makes the movie deeper and deeper.
Yeah.
And it was all a setup, and he was targeting these terrible, terrible children. and in the book, let me cross frames. In the book, at the very end, when the glass elevator takes off, there's an illustration of the other 4 kids walking out. And, Mike has been stretched and he's like 12 feet tall, and Violet has been squeezed, and, Veruca and Augustus, they've been through the ringer, but they're all alive, and you get the idea they learned their lesson. They're waving and happy.
Yeah.
So you get the idea that it's not as dark as you think, but you don't really know in the movie.
Yeah.
So I did the same exact thing. I looked up film theories after this, and that is the most popular one, that the ticket contest was completely rigged. And I think it makes sense. Like Slugworth is actually, you can see Slugworth doing something in the background before he even talks, as the kid is being on television for winning the ticket. He's doing something in the background. One of which, he's the journalist himself. So he's already there. If he's already there, in my opinion, he's the one planted the ticket somewhere for the kids to get it. And he's just waiting.
Yeah.
And now, why these specific kids were targeted, especially the ones that didn't already live there. Like, my guess is, Wonka would have been already familiar. It's the same town. So he would have already been familiar with maybe Charlie and his family.
Right.
So he already had Charlie in mind. Now, why we needed, 4 or 5 other kids that obviously didn't deserve anything, why we needed that, I don't know. I mean, that was probably just for the movie sake. But,
it wouldn't be that fun to watch if it was like just Charlie. All right, Charlie, let's go.
Yeah, just a kid shows up, he gives them the keys, the end. But I love that.
And that was the best 10-minute movie ever.
That's right. That's right.
So I looked at it this way. The movie, really, there's 40 minutes, 42 minutes, I think, before they get to the factory. All of the backstory, all of the buckets being poor, all of the other kids opening tickets, Charlie opening tickets, the song that all the family sings, within 40 minutes. At 52 minutes, they're in the factory. At the 52-minute, a few seconds mark, the big door opens into the candy room, the chocolate room. And at 52 minutes, I believe that's where the movie really starts.
Yeah.
Because the minute they walk into the candy room, you guys probably know this, the kids had never seen that set.
Yeah.
So the reactions are real. Gene Wilder as Wonka is standing there, and he's evidently seen it. And they're walking and they're reacting. He sings Pure Imagination, which was classic.
Yeah.
Classic.
I would love that song. And I know it has a dark undertone, but not taking it face value.
Right.
That to me is the high point of the film. That scene in the chocolate room.
I always like when there's like I mean, I know it sounds kind of, but like I always like when there's like a little dark undertone to some songs. It's that they sound whimsical and happy, but then there's
Right.
something deeper underneath. I think that's a really cool thing. At least I think it is.
I agree, and that was one of the other stipulations that Gene Wilder put in writing. I think that he wanted control of what the other actors would know about
Right.
when they do the scene, because again, going back to the tunnel scene, none of the actors knew that he was going to say anything in that tunnel.
Yeah.
All of that was genuine. They thought he
Oh,
was
wow.
legit psychotic.
Also, that scene 51 years later is still terrifying.
It is.
It's the
It is
lighting.
terrifying.
Yeah.
Well, it's like the green screen in the background with the spiders and stuff. It's just, just
Yeah.
creepy.
I can't believe that's not an amusement park.
It literally just
let me take
it-
it back. I'm sure it is.
Yeah. This whole thing, like, it just reminded me of like a psychotic Dr. Seuss
Mhm,
book.
mhm.
And the entire time
It's
I'm
a
watching,
good
like,
way
this
to
is,
put that.
yeah,
A
like, it was
psychotic-
like, this
yeah.
is a
That's
psychotic
got to be the
Dr. Seuss
tagline for
moment.
the episode.
Psychotic. Yeah, it will be in the description. I think. I also think that he is heavily inspired. At least this interpretation of Willy Wonka on screen is heavily inspired by the Mad Hatter,
Oh,
just with the hat
I
and
can
everything. I
see
mean,
that,
it's
yeah.
clear Mad Hatter.
Even if they don't admit it, it's evident to people watching.
Oh, yeah.
I also, I'm sorry, I don't want to bogart the conversation.
Go ahead.
I like when they're signing paperwork and then the guy's like, wait, I need to ask you something. And Wonka, all questions must be supported in the form of writing. And he just, I love I'm a little deaf in this. You need to speak into this ear.
Yeah.
And I also, my favorite quote by Wonka, well, I'm sorry, I have several. Little girl's on the back of the bike and she's picking her nose. And they're
Mhm.
talking about spitting. And she's like, spitting's a dirty habit. And Wonka goes, I can think of one worse. I can think of one grosser, whatever. I've heard it before. I laughed out loud at my house. Spitting's a dirty habit. I can think of worse.
I think this is
just-
also the first time listening to like the Oompa Loompas sing like
Yeah.
the full song, and I'm just like, I never realized there was like a message. I mean, I just remember Oompa, Loompa, Goblin,
Mhm.
whatever,
I
but
don't-
like they actually have a message in these songs.
Oh yeah, every one
I
of
did
them
not
has a
know that.
message. Absolutely. So I guess disclaimer: the term Oompa Loompa is apparently a slur. So that's one of the, I guess, the more PC things that's not really great for today. But what they've done is lowercase Oompa Loompa when it's spelling is sort of the slur, and uppercase when you start it with a uppercase O, that is in the Oxford Dictionary as the fictional characters from this movie.
Huh.
So that's how they've kind of distinct, But yeah, that was apparently a slur that was in the book that was kind of meant as a slur in the book. So that's one of the dark elements of Willy Wonka.
I was working at a summer camp back in, 2008, 2009. And the guy that I was working for, he and the guy planned a game about Willy Wonka versus the king of the Oompa Loompas. And we had this one camp counselor. He's about 6'4", great big guy. They got him a top hat and a cane.
Mhm.
He was Willy Wonka. There's this other guy working who's about 5'2.5", about 220. It was me. I was the king of the Oompa Loompas. And we couldn't find a costume. So they took saran wrap and wrapped it around both of my legs, my waist, my arms. We spray painted it, I think silver, if I'm remembering right.
Mhm.
And the whole point of the game was me and the other Oompa Loompas trying to take over Wonka's factory. So the campers are with us. And I will never forget how fun. And listen, I want to act like I'm offended because I'm short. I'm not, but that's my connection to it. I feel like I'm part of that because of a stupid game we made up years ago.
That's hilarious. So
I have no pictures or I would show them.
I noticed that one of the things that Wonka says when he's talking about the Oompa Loompas is Hornswoggle. And so Nate and I are wrestling fans, and there was a wrestler in the 2000s and up until probably 4 or 5 years ago. I
Oh,
think
gosh,
is when
it's
he
not
kind of
been
retired.
long.
It's not been long. Named Hornswoggle.
Yeah.
It was a short wrestler, and his name was Hornswoggle. I guarantee you that's where this name come from.
It has to be.
It has to be. So
That was another Dr. Seuss moment because I kept thinking these are just like Dr. Seuss rhymes at moments.
mhm.
But they're funny. I mean, they're definitely iconic.
Also, I appreciate how the movie, especially with Charlie. Charlie really is the main actor, the main
Mhm.
character in this
Mhm.
movie, and his story, being this poor kid who is helping to support his family, and because at least one set of grandparents seem like lazy bums. I don't know about the other one. Is the other set, because they don't really get much time. They get kind of disrespected the entire movie. It's like, oh, we care about Grandpa Joe and what Grandpa Joe's doing and how much Grandpa Joe and getting him tobacco and all this stuff. We could care less about the other one. And so that kind of irked me. I was like, why is the other one not getting anything?
If I
All
remember
them's
right, in
bums
the
except
books,
for
all
Charlie
four
and
of
the
the
mom.
characters kind of have a part, but in the
Mm.
movie there just wasn't. If I'm remembering right,
Right. Yeah.
the kid that played Charlie, only movie he was ever in.
Yeah. Yeah. Apparently he became a veterinarian, I
Yeah.
believe.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
That is cool. But yeah, that was kind of annoying to me that all the grandparents don't get a part. And now I don't remember the original complaint of what I was talking about. What was I talking about? What sent me down this road?
No, I
we were
tuned you out
talking.
when you start talking. I'm just waiting for my turn.
I mean, we were just talking about like Charlie and growing up
Oh
poor.
yeah, Charlie's. Yeah. So I mean, I appreciate that story, and one of the, I guess, most heartbreaking things is when he goes to his mom's. She washes clothes for a living, and he goes there, and he said, "I just want to let you know that the third ticket's been found." And she's like, "Oh," and he's like, "I just thought you might be interested." He's like, "I'm really interested." I thought you might be. He's like, "I also want you to know that I'm not going to get a ticket just in case you're interested. It's not going to be me." Yeah, I was like, that is so heartbreaking that a kid like that is just getting his hopes crushed
Mm-hmm.
by more unveiling of the tickets. So
I don't know if you knew this or not when you watched the movie. The buckets were really poor because they didn't beat you over the head with it enough in the first 30 minutes.
Right. Really, really poor.
I was waiting for the tornado to come through and destroy their house.
Just their house.
Just their house, no others. That's
right. I love that when they're in the Wonka elevator and they're flying over the city. So number one, this city's beautiful. I don't know where this is. I didn't look up that stat, but it's somewhere in Europe. Has to be
Germany.
Germany? Okay.
I think so.
It looked like probably some. I mean, every place looked the same, and I'm like, how can someone, that Charlie's house, the way it looks, how can that be in that line of like this city here?
I can see my house from here.
Yeah, where? But they all look good. So I just felt so bad for that family. They really beat you over the head of how poor they were.
Like they're eating cabbage water or something like that.
Cabbage water, yeah, yeah, and yeah. I also Mr. Turpentine, when he's going through his percentages, and he's taking everybody. I was like 100, 200, 150, and then he's like 2. He's like, okay, 200. It's like, no, just 2. He's like, 2.
I can't even.
I can't do 2. It's like, well, clearly you can't do math then.
Right, I did the math. I did the math at home. The movie was shot in Munich, Germany.
Oh,
nice. It's a beautiful place.
Yeah.
Yeah. Still don't want to go.
Yeah.
Still no interest. If I'm going anywhere, it's to Austria, the birthplace of Arnold, but that's not tonight.
There you go.
No.
That was last week.
Right. I'm just trying to tie all the plot. I'm trying to make them all flow together.
That's right. Oh goodness. What else?
Well, I will say, like, as I do remember the remake from whenever. Charlie in the original is a lot more appealing than the one, because like he has the real kid element, as opposed to the other one was just like, I guess I hate to use this term, but a goody two shoes. Like, it was like he didn't do anything wrong, not even like get into a little bit of mischief. But like in this one, he drunk the soda pop stuff when he shouldn't have.
Right.
But it wasn't like, he intentionally did it maliciously. So it kind of showed you that he's still a kid. He's like still like just gonna get into things because he's curious, whatever.
Right. And honestly, it wasn't his fault at all. It was Grandpa Joe that talked him into it.
That jerk.
Grandpa Joe, what a bum.
What? Yeah. He's been mooching for 30 years.
And
Like-
his legs worked the whole time.
The
I
whole
call
time.
bull.
I am bedridden. Okay, like
That's
I'm
right. So I read another interesting film theory, a very dark and twisted one. It's that not only does Willie know who is going to be coming there with kids wise, he also has it planned for each room that he's taking them to for a specific one to be eliminated at that point.
Sure. Well, doesn't it
And-
make sense when you watch the movie?
I mean, from the movie standpoint, it makes sense, but it's. I think it's more fun to think about it that it's actually Wonka that's in control of this, and he is eliminating them. So in the boat, for example, when they get in the boat, and I've referenced this all night, there's only room enough for the people that's left. There's not room enough for everybody.
Right.
Okay. Then when they fast forward, that they get to the train that throws. Apparently, another fun fact, that foam stuff, that's actually the stuff from fire extinguishers, which after they used it, apparently everybody had to have medical attention.
Yeah, I read that too.
Yeah. So that's hilarious. But there's only room enough for the people who are left at that point. So, it's very convenient that worked out that way, and I like to think that Wonka was actually pulling the strings and basically leaving them in the room, tempting them enough, knowing that they're going to fail. And the thing about Charlie and Grandpa when they're in the Fizzy lifting thing, they don't stay in that room no time.
Right.
And so they partake in the drink and they fly up and do all that, but Willie doesn't stay in there. They were not in that room anytime, and basically that seems to indicate to me that he really didn't intend on Charlie and Grandpa
Right.
failing that. Like
Right.
he didn't plan for them. He didn't really want them to fail it, and they did. So then that I guess that did void the contract. All of those words, etc., etc. I love that part of the movie as well. But then it was basically he was testing Charlie. I guess fast forward to the very end with
Right.
the gobstopper,
Mhm.
the everlasting gobstopper, to see if he makes that right move. And it's such an interesting dynamic that was the ultimate test, that
Right.
you're waiting to see if he's going to do the right thing with that. And because in my opinion, like if you felt like you've been screwed, and I mean Grandpa Joe and Charlie felt like they'd been screwed out of the chocolate at that point.
Mhm.
I don't know that I could have made that decision to give that thing back.
That is
You know?
why you didn't inherit a chocolate factory when Gene Wilder died.
That's true. That is true.
That is why none of us are massively wealthy. Yeah, because Grandpa Joe was like, "Come on, Charlie, let's go." And Charlie lays the gobstopper on his desk. It's a beautiful moment.
Mhm.
That is
You know,
true.
When you think about the kids, though, they take them to the room with all the chocolate. You have a kid who just likes to eat incessantly.
Yeah.
You clearly have planned for that eventuality. Then they go to the chewing gum room. The girl likes chewing gum. Then you take the other girl.
The golden goose.
Yeah,
golden
then
egg.
she's a brat.
Mm-hmm.
Then you take the kid where they're transmitting particles. He's addicted to TV. That's brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
It's
The
clearly
only
planned.
kid besides like Charlie that I felt like was not a terrible kid was the television kid. Like he just was obsessed with television. I mean, yeah, he was kind of a brat, but like nothing compared to the other three, I guess.
Right.
I also think this movie is a testament to like kids and parenting,
Mhm.
and how failed parenting results in these type of kids.
Yeah.
And that is something that you can place in any generation. Like I felt
Right.
like a lot of the stuff we were seeing was completely relevant to today.
Oh,
You know,
yeah. Oh, no
with
doubt.
Just replace that kid that's addicted to TV with a kid addicted to their cell phone
Yeah.
or to gaming,
Right.
Mhm. I mean,
So-
because like, yeah, back then it makes sense to kind of like critique why parents are allowing their kids to be raised by television. But now it's like, okay, you're letting your child at the age of 2 or 3 hold a cell phone and now they're
Right.
just, it's kind of the same thing, that something
It-
happens every generation, something that replaces television with, I don't know, the internet and it or whatever.
Mhm. Yep. I also think that it's a testament to Charlie and his family that because he doesn't have anything, because he's responsible, because he has to help provide,
Mhm.
that is the reason why he is such a good kid, and
Yeah.
he's so humble.
So basically, poor kids, we need to raise our children poor. I got you. That's what I heard.
That's not exactly what I said, but
I mean, I don't have any kids, but they'd be good at my house. They'd make
We
it.
got to manipulate them. Okay, we are poor. Remember that we are poor.
we're
Remember.
poor.
But Daddy, you have all these toys. Yeah. That's why we're poor.
Yeah. That's right.
You don't have any toys and you can't play with these.
That's right. So, at some point, did the family mention, was Charlie's dad? Did he die?
In the
Did
movie,
they-
you think he is.
Mhm.
I mean, did they specifically say that though, or did they
No,
say
I just
his-
assumed because
think
like
it's just
that was kind of
alluded
a
to.
thing for a lot of these like sort of kid films, like that one parent was always killed off or
Oh,
something.
that's true.
It's like a Disney movie. Disney hates happy couples.
So I know when
Yeah.
in one of the scenes where Charlie is at the bedside of all of his grandparents and they're talking about, Charlie having a hard life. And I think they say, it wouldn't be like this if his father was still around or something
think
like that.
that's
So,
right.
yeah. So I don't know that they said that his father had died, but still around. I just wonder if there is a unexplored film theory here where Willy Wonka is his father. This was the whole point of the movie.
Right.
Trying to get out that child support, I guess.
That's a deep dive.
Here's the factory for all the years I owe you child support, I guess.
Also,
Yeah.
I mean, it's fun that Willy Wonka wanted to pass it down to a kid, and
Right.
and they gave justification that I want it run this way, and only a kid would do that. But what he hasn't thought about is that kid's going to grow up and be an adult eventually. So good luck with
So,
that.
Do you think that is a kind of a good way of looking at that? Because kids are easily, I would say, like kind of influenced. So you think it, or do you think it's because they still have a little bit of innocence left, and they still have like the magical sense as far as an imagination is, as where
I think
you're an adult, you kind of lose that. Do you think?
I think
that's
it's the
what-
imagination thing.
Yeah.
But in the world of the movie, it's
Yeah.
a happy ending.
Right.
I don't know what would have happened if it was real life.
Right.
But in the world of the movie, we're supposed to accept that this is what happens. Charlie gets this and things are good.
Well, in real life, OSHA wouldn't allow any of this to happen. So,
No.
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, I know some people takes that scene as him being like kind of manipulative to the kid, but I'm thinking, I don't think it was intended to be. I think it was like just because like a kid has like a more of an imagination and innocence than an adult does. Because when you're an adult, you kind of worry about bills and like your family getting food on the table, stuff like
Mhm.
that kind of goes away. And that's kind of like what a lot of Stephen King books mention, like where you're a kid, you still have like, of course, he touches on loss of innocence in all his films. And I feel like this was kind of doing the same, but not the lost part, but more like a child in its innocence. But yeah, that was just my take on it.
Yeah.
I like that.
So some other, I was watching, I don't know, like one of those movie scene channels where they point out the faults or the
Yeah.
wrongs of a specific movie. I was watching a video of that last night, and they were talking about that basically Wonka with Oompa Loompas, that he claims he saved them, and that's likely true in this fictional movie, but they are working. I mean,
Yeah.
and I don't know that they're getting paid. They can live there, right? But I don't know if they're getting
Yeah.
paid anything. And the fact that they're doing all the work, and then he still feels that a kid off the street is better to run the factory than the workers. Like, if I don't know.
Well,
that might be like a jab at like American corporations or something like that.
We
Just
need to
passed
bring
down
back
to their
child
kid.
labor laws. No, we need to get rid of child labor laws. That's what we need. No.
I was thinking he held the Oompa Loompas as slaves. I thought that was the theory.
That would be the white man's way of doing things.
I've definitely heard that. You know, I don't know if the movie really indicates that, other than they are obviously workers, and they don't. I don't know that they seem to be forced workers. They seem, you know, with the story of him saving them from whatever island they're from. That seems like they're just grateful, and he gave them a place to live and work. You know,
Right.
They're earning their keep, so to speak.
Right.
But at the same time, you would think you would just hand the factory over to them instead of just some random kid. You know,
whoever the senior Oompa Loompa is, like, hey, you've been here long enough, you can run this.
Right. I don't know. I mean, I don't know that we're supposed to look at it that deeply, but it sure is fun to talk about.
Yeah.
Right. So apparently in the remake, the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Johnny Depp version, they just casted one person.
Deep Roy, I think was his name.
Yeah. And then they made, you know, duplicates. They basically allowed him to play all the Oompa Loompas instead of casting multiple. And so that's actually, I guess, a good topic. One of the things that I've seen as of late is there's been some uproar, and I think Peter Dinklage it was one of his comments that kind of inspired this uproar, I believe, and that is, you know, short people, the people with dwarfism, they get only casted for roles where that is the, I guess, prominent characteristic of, and I think, you know, he was kind of pushing back at that they are way more talented to not, you know, just be. He certainly is. Like, he's an amazing actor for sure. So I found that interesting. Like, I was watching or listening to an interview with and I don't know his real name, Nate, you might, the guy who played Hornswoggle in WWE.
Oh,
you know his actual name?
Dylan Post. Why in the world do I know that?
Dylan Post. And they were asking him about that. And it was on that Renee's podcast.
Oh, Oral Sessions.
That's it. Oral Sessions.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Is that not what it's called?
It is. It is.
Yeah.
Amazing name for a podcast.
By the way, I have a still trap for useless knowledge. Don't ask me what I had for breakfast this morning.
Love it.
Like, what did you have for breakfast? I don't know. I'll have to think about it. Hey, who won the Super Bowl in 1996? Green Bay. Why do you know that? I don't know. I'm not sure it was Green Bay, just for the record.
She was asking him his thoughts on that, and he said that while he appreciates someone, you know, taking up for people with their condition and things like that, he thinks that type of critique of Hollywood, of the movie industry, isn't necessary, because if you start eliminating roles that would be specific to people with dwarfism, you're going to eliminate a lot of opportunity for people like him. So, and I think that's a fair point too.
What if when they filmed Game of Thrones, they said, you know what, we have the technology, we can cast anybody we want to play Tyrion Lannister, even though George Martin wanted Peter Dinklage. The creators of the show wanted Peter Dinklage. Peter Dinklage wanted to play that role. HBO was like, no, we've got the technology. We're just going to hire some unknown in their 20s, and we'll digitally make them small.
Yep.
Well, then we would have lost some of the greatest performances ever on TV.
Yep.
I mean,
Absolutely.
prior to Game of Thrones, I saw him in a couple of comedies.
Yeah.
Like he was in
he's in Elf.
Yeah, he was in Elf, and he was in the original Death at a Funeral. And I'm like, I remember seeing that like a long time ago, and I'm like, hey, that's a guy from that movie. And I'm like, and then I realized how good of an actor he really is, because what little I saw of Game of Thrones, I'm like this, you know, he's breaking boundaries for, I mean, people in, you know, that situation.
Right.
And I think that's good.
He's a good actor. The fact that he has dwarfism, or whatever the term is kind of irrelevant, although it is a defining characteristic sometimes.
Right. Yeah. So before we get too much farther, I meant to show this earlier, but
what? What? Where did that come from?
So I got this from T Public. This is
Oh man.
Willy Wonka shirt. It is my favorite quote from the movie. It is when
I'm getting it, yes, sir.
Grandpa Joe and Charlie at the very end, and they're talking to him about the chocolate, and he tells them they broke the contract, and it says, "You get nothing, you lose. Good day, sir." And apparently that was one of the other scenes that the actors didn't know what his line was.
Right.
They didn't know that he was going to be snippy
because in rehearsal he played it like he was just disappointed.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And when they filmed, he went ballistic, and it scared Peter Ostrom.
It did. His face, he looked like he was going to cry.
Yeah.
I was like, perfect.
I didn't think about T Public for Willy Wonka merch. I should have done that.
Yeah. T Public has any merch you can think of, so I
Yes.
love it.
I will say I did some looking. I like the Funko Pops. They have some Willy Wonka Pops. There is the Willy Wonka Pop, if you can find it, is valued at over $100.
I have it.
You don't.
I have it. I
Do
should.
you really?
I
cool,
do.
man.
I do.
I don't know that I'm willing to pay that much for it, but if I ever stumble across it, I will buy it. I'm not going to go on Amazon and order it. I want to find it.
Yeah.
I got it many years ago when when it first released. That's when I got it.
So you got it. You got it at the beginning. Nice move.
Yeah, I'm going to hold it. It's going to increase in value.
Is it in the box?
Yeah.
Oh, so I don't keep mine in boxes.
Now I have I have a bunch back here, and they're not in boxes, but that one I'm keeping in the box for sure.
Right. When I do that with some.
Mm-hmm.
I got mine in boxes just because, I don't know. I just feel like
That's up to you.
Yeah. And I'm trying to collect a bunch of horror ones. Like I got Freddy, Jason, Pinhead, and Pennywise.
Oh,
So I'm wanting to try to get Chucky next. And
you need to come to the shop in Tazewell. He has a ton of horror ones.
Nice.
I'll tell you what,
I'm
Josh.
gonna be down there this week.
What we need to do is you and I need to make a road trip to Tazewell to Welcome Back Collectibles, meet up with Nate, get some dinner, and go to that shop.
Who
We
ever
should
says
plan
make
that.
a road trip to Tazewell?
I know.
Sentence that never been spoken for 500, Alex.
Yes. All right. Well, I think we have discussed this pretty well. This is one of my favorite movies.
It's a good movie.
I'm glad we got to.
What's
I'm
the
glad I got
youngest
to finally
age to
watch
watch
it.
this?
Yeah.
The youngest age, like kid
What's the
wise.
appropriate age to show your kids?
I
Right
would
away.
right away, immediately, newborn.
Been over the
I
hospital
would
today, buddy. You watch this.
I would say around the age of 10, 9 or 10. That's probably the age of. Well, how old was Charlie in this?
He was 8 in
Actually.
this movie.
He was 8.
They mentioned 8.
He was probably older.
Or
The actor was probably older.
maybe somebody mentioned 8.
Yeah, I would say 9 or 10 is what I would say. Now I don't know when the first time I watched it. It was definitely a kid. I just don't know if it was that young. May have been.
And this is a G-rated film of its time, so really, it probably would have. Now, it still probably would have been a PG movie.
It'd be PG, no question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think between 6 and 10, 11, 12, whatever, and on.
I was just curious what you guys thought.
Yeah, I'm perfectly comfortable with kids, but I don't have kids, so whatever.
Me either. I don't have any. I feel like I've raised several, but
Right. All right.
I mean,
well,
it's definitely just a fun movie. I definitely could rewatch this.
absolutely.
Oh,
It's so rewatchable.
I could not agree more. I enjoyed watching it. Sometimes the movies we've watched, I've been like, I've seen it. I need to watch it again. This one, I just watched.
Yeah.
I didn't fool with my phone much. I just watched.
Same.
Not quite in that position, but still.
Good stuff. All right, Nate. I think it's your turn to pick a movie.
Well,
So you're up, sir.
let's see. We've been in the 70s and 80s a lot,
We sure have.
which is where I enjoy being.
Yeah.
I don't have my list in front of me.
We really haven't been going by the list here lately.
I think
so
the
No, we
list-
haven't. You haven't.
the
at all.
list is dead.
Well, you know what I think we should do for fun, and this will show my age, and you guys are not going to like it. I want us to watch The Goonies and talk about it.
Okay.
Okay, this is gonna be funny. As big of a horror fan I am, I've never seen The Goonies.
I have seen The Goonies, and I don't remember if I like it, but
See, it came out, I was maybe 6, 7, 8. I can't remember, but I was a kid. So
Mhm.
like for like my generation, it's huge. Then I have a buddy who's about 12 years younger than me, and it's his favorite movie ever. So I don't
Nice.
know. It's worth watching.
I just found
Absolutely.
out recently Josh Brolin played in it.
Yeah.
I'm
Oh
like,
wow.
and I remember Sean
Corey
Ashton played in
Haim,
it.
Sean
Yeah.
Astin.
Mm.
And I'm just like, I need to really watch. But every time I think about it, I always, go watch something else. But
I think it's one of those movies that just it's a childhood quest. It's like Stand By Me. It's better than
Yeah.
Stand By Me. It's
and
like
it definitely,
Yeah.
that's a good point because like that's definitely part of those iconic 80s
Yeah.
movies that involves like it's that Steven Spielberg,
yeah,
Stephen
he
King
produced it.
era. Yeah. So
Mhm.
like if you are in like where I like Stranger Things, this would
Yes.
be fun to watch.
Okay, then you will like it.
So
It reminds Stranger Things reminds me of Goonies, although Stranger Things has a supernatural elements. Again, if you guys don't like it, I guess I'll do all the talking.
I think, yeah, I've not seen it more than once, so I can't give a good opinion right now. But I will look forward to it, and it's going to make some great art for the thumbnail. I can already imagine.
I think
Nate,
you should be
Nate,
Sloth.
you will be the lead character.
I don't want to be the lead character. I want you to be Sloth. There's the lead character until we get into a movie where the lead character is just a guy. I don't need the lead character who's like a super cool guy. I want to be one of the Fratelli boys. No.
I hear that. All right, good stuff. Well,
That's
as
good.
always, ending with a closing quote, although it's not really a quote, it's more of a musical. So, from the movie Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, I've Got a Golden Ticket. I never thought my life could be anything but catastrophe. Joining me in this song, welcome Cartoon Nate dressed as Grandpa Joe.
But suddenly I began to see a bit of good luck for me.
'Cause I've got a golden ticket. I've got a golden twinkle in my eye.
I never had a chance to shine, never a happy song to sing. But suddenly half the world is mine. What an amazing thing.
'Cause I've got a golden ticket. I've got a golden sun up in the sky.
I never dreamed that I would climb over the moon in ecstasy. But nevertheless, it's there that I'm shortly about to be.
'Cause I've got a golden ticket. I've got a golden chance to make my way. And with the golden ticket, it's a golden day.
Grandpa, there's a federal investigator out here asking about your disability.
Oh, no, I gotta go. Bye, everybody.
Thank you so much for tuning into the podcast. We hope that we were able to entertain you at least for a spell. If you see value in our craziness and want to continue supporting us, please follow us on social media. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, like our videos, and share our content with someone you may know. Also, let us know how we're doing. Make suggestions for the podcast. Leave us a comment. Heck, send us an email. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time on the Bottle of Pop Culture podcast.